good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. It's been a fiery, eventful day of campaigning in West Bengal. Yes, we are a few weeks away from elections in the state of West Bengal. And challenging Mamata Banerjee's rule there is the BJP. Challenging Mamata Banerjee in her turf today was Amit Shah himself, and a war of words, as expected, erupted between Amit Shah and Mamata Banerjee. Now, all of this is actually taking place as part of BJP's Poribortan Yatra, which is supposed to be a Rath Yatra but has now been renamed as Poribortan Yatra. The decks for this was cleared by the High Court itself that dismissed a plea. Hitting out at Mamata while addressing a rally in Thakur Nagar earlier today, Amit Shah launched this yatra and then he taunted Mamata Banerjee, saying that by the end of this poll, some people will be chanting Jai Shree Ram. He also asked why she feels insulted by these chants. Mamata Banerjee, on the other hand, says BJP can abuse her but cannot ignore her. A whole new debate, Vikas versus Vinash, is the pitch by Amit Shah. We're going to talk about politics in Bengal in just a bit, but I want to first play out excerpts of some of these comments from various rallies today.
और देश दुनिया भर में फैले हुए करोड़ों लोग हमारे आराध्य श्री राम को याद कर गौरव महसूस करते हैं, गौरव। मगर आपको तकलीफ होती है क्योंकि आपको तुष्टीकरण कर एक वर्ग विशेष के वोट चाहिए।
ये शोभा नहीं देता। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, आपका भाषा में मैं कह रहा हूं। आप मेरे को गाली दे सकता है लेकिन आप मेरे को इग्नोर नहीं कर सकता है। यही चीज है, ये आपको वो समझना चाहिए।
मोदी सरकार गरीब कल्याण के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है, ममता सरकार भतीजे कल्याण के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है।
আমি দুঃখিত, আমি লজ্জিত যে জগন্নাথ দেবের রথযাত্রাকে এরা কালিমা লিপ্ত করেছে। ধর্মের নামে মনে রাখবেন, এরা অধর্ম করছে। ধর্মের নামে অধর্ম করছে। দেবতার রথ বিজেপির রথ হতে পারে না।
Those are just some interesting excerpts. We continuously will give you some of the comments that were made by both sides today. Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Suparno, Moitra, spokesperson for the TMC, Avajit Ghoshal, news editor with Money 9, Shoaib Daniel, senior associate editor with Scroll, and Priyanka Tibrewal, leader of the BJP in West Bengal. Let me actually start off with Shoaib to just try and put this in perspective as the campaign rallies pick up pace, Shoaib. What is your own sense of how this election is going to be fought? What seems to be the key issues that the two parties will focus on, apart from, of course, Jai Shree Ram slogans?
I think today was a very interesting day because Mr. Shah had two very large and very well-attended rallies. So it shows that this election is going to be very well fought. And what Mr. Shah and what Ms. Banerjee, Chief Minister Banerjee also spoke about, also cues us in on what is going to be the agenda for the election, which is going to be, unfortunately, a fairly communalized election, with each side accusing the other of appeasement versus communalism. So, this is really setting a lot of our national debate right now has been taken up by, say, the farmers' protests, but with expectations of a fairly early-ish West Bengal election sometime in April. We're really going to see the heat pick up for the next month or so.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, if you look at various comments being made, there is firstly, of course, appeasement. The whole fight about Rath Yatra and Jagannath Yatra and Dharma and Adharma and Jai Shree Ram that's been spoken about. We also saw mentions of CAA and people coming through the border. Again, that's going to be one big communal face-off that takes place. There was some mention, Priyanka Tibrewal, of some of the government schemes. Of course, a lot of the central schemes don't function in West Bengal. But is it clear for the BJP, this Poribortan Yatra is going to take your larger Jai Shree Ram message to the state?
See, actually, this has not been our intention to go and spread the message of Jai Shree Ram. No, it never was. But the perspective which Mamata Banerjee is trying to put before people is like, that Jai Shree Ram hounds her. Now, I don't understand that if you are a Hindu, how can Jai Shree Ram be an insult to you? How can a Jai Shree Ram or people chanting Jai Shree Ram haunt you? Which way I actually fail to understand. But apart from that, yes, as you said, there were schemes which were mentioned, and that is a real fact that the central schemes were not implemented in West Bengal because Mamata Banerjee had her own political interest in not doing so. She did not want that BJP or the central government should reach to the people because for her, the prime minister and the central schemes are the schemes of BJP. So that is the reason she stopped Ayushman Yojana over here. That is the reason she stopped the farmers 6,000 rupees, which was supposed to go to the farmers under the Kisan Samriddhi Yojana. And she has always said no to any or everything which the center initiated to get to West Bengal. But yes, of course, when the finances were concerned in Amphan, she just wanted funds and the center did give. But she did not have a reply to what she did with those funds. So, of course, this is a syndicate. Cut money culture prevalent in West Bengal. And that is what Mr. Amit Shah was speaking about today.
I agree with you, but why is it that then everybody feels the need of bringing out the other aspect? It's a Poribortan Yatra, and correct me if my understanding of your intent and the messaging with that name is wrong. But if you're going to talk about change, isn't the change supposed to be for the good of the people, for the development of the state, to get rid of the corruption, to get rid of this whole cut mafia system that you talk about? Why do we still end up hearing other parts in these rally speeches?
No, of course, it is about development. We are speaking about what are we planning for West Bengal. And you see, the center, Modi ji, 2-3 days back, he came and he has already started with the development work for West Bengal. But what actually happened, the CM did not even go and attend. Because see, if this is not politics, if she is not bothered about politics, why didn't she go and attend a central program, which she should have attended for the sake of development for West Bengal? See, not just that, she has played with the emotions of people. She has used them as vote banks. And I am not saying only about minorities. The Mathua Samaj here, she has played with their emotions for so many years. I mean, they are the Hindus who came from Bangladesh. She should have been the first one to speak about the citizenship. But no, she is rather saying that she does not want to implement CAA over here. Now, she was the one who threw papers on the speaker's face, and when she was talking about illegal immigrants coming from Bangladesh. Now, what has changed in these 10 years? Why has she completely changed her stand on the same issue?
Okay, let's get in a response. Let's get in a response from Suparno Moitra on what the BJP is asking here, because at the end of the day, Mr. Moitra, it does look like the BJP is trying the same thing as they did in Bihar, where they say, here are our central schemes as well. We're going to implement them, and that worked for them in Bihar. They took that pitch of development to the people, Vikas over Vinash, and despite Nitish Kumar facing anti-incumbency, they did well. That could be a big challenge for the TMC now.
Good evening, ma'am, and I wish a good evening to all the fellow panelists and all the viewers of this program. Now, to start, let me tell you, BJP possibly could have saved their time, money, and energy from doing this Poribortan Yatra. Because if you look at the record of BJP for the last 6.5 years, they have already done a lot of Poribortan. And if I could tell you on 5 counts, number 1, they have converted brotherhood to polarization, harmony to hatred, hope to despair, a running economy to a stalled economy, and democracy to autocracy. What is the favorite calling card when the whole, and they have also done a couple of feats which possibly the credit should go to the Bharatiya Janata Party. The Indian economy is officially projected to contract at 7.7%, which is the lowest in 41 years. The new investment as a part of GDP is expected to fall to 28%, which is a new low of 20 years. The latest financial stability report, which is a stress test of the RBI as a center of bad loans, is expected to double up from September 2020 to 14% in 2021. And one high, unemployment has reached a high of last 45 years. So when the fundamental issues of development, growth, jobs would have been the agenda. The only calling card possibly for BJP is Lord Rama, one, and two, nationalism. We fight up, we have no aversion to Lord Rama because he resides in all our hearts. We have no aversion. But it's a bit unfortunate that the BJP is such a politically bankrupt party. They will have to use Lord Rama for the narrow and sectarian political gain. This is very, very unfortunate one.
You know, if I may just come in there, Mr. Moitra, and I appreciate that you're bringing up these issues and you're rattling off these statistics to me about the state of the economy and the state of the country and central government schemes. But this is not what your leaders are saying in their rallies. What your leaders are saying in the rallies are rumba, humba, rumba, rumba, kamba, kamba, JP, Nadda, Fadda, Chadda. They're going on to then talk about we are not going to allow the BJP here. If the BJP comes, if you vote for the BJP, you will get riots, and that's the only thing that you're going to get. This is not a Rath Yatra. This is an insult to the Jagannath Yatra. I can go on and on about Lord Jagannath, Balaram, Goddess, Subhadra, everybody. So it's unfair really to our viewers right now while you want to project these economy and development kind of conversations in TV studios, out on the ground and in rallies. There is a completely different narrative even from your party.
I would respond. Let me just complete the first part, only 2 points left. Mrs. Tibrewal had brought forward 2 points also. I think the promises made by the Bharatiya Janata Party with regard to the Citizenship Amendment Act. Now, the viewers are aware the Citizenship Amendment Act was passed 14 months before in the Parliament. And what did we see? On the 2nd of February 2021, the Minister of State for the MHA, Sri Nityananda Rai, stated that the rules are yet to be framed and sought an extension for 6 months. He has also stated that there will be no nationwide NRC, no phase 1 of census 2021, and also no update of the NPR. While the BJP leader, Shri Amit Shah, who also happens to be the Home Minister, goes on making such promises to whichever place he goes. And with regard to Matwa, let me tell you, our position is pretty clear, ma'am. We have said that if they're not citizens, then how possibly could the member, Sri Shantanu Thakurji, also become a member of the parliament if he was not a citizen of the country? So this sort of political gimmickry or baseless charges or fake promises is a narrative of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and we would not like to comment on that, ma'am.
You haven't answered my question on what is being mentioned in TMC rallies and Mamata Banerjee's own speeches. What I just rattled off to you, Mr. Moitra, is exactly what is being said in your own campaign rallies. Now, how do you say from one side that the other side is worse off than we are, or that we are better than them? That's the whole point. That unfortunately, the narrative has actually still boiled down to these kind of politics.
Madam, we have been running this government for the last 10 years. We got elected in 2011. We have done work for the last 10 years, and in a democracy, each political party, including our political adversaries, will be going to the election, and they'll be making their pitch to the people.
Yeah.
We repose our faith in the people, and if the people have faith in the work that we have done, our policies of inclusivity and the ideologies, I'm sure will be voted back to power, ma'am.
Okay, let me get in, Mr. Avijit Ghoshal as well. Mr. Ghoshal, is this going to be the narrative then, like Shoaib said, communalization in this campaign season? And if that happens, can Mamata Banerjee really then put up a tough fight on that front with the BJP?
Good evening, Tanvi. I think that line is correct. In fact, polarization is going to be one of the dominant factors that will play out during the campaign. And in fact, there are two parallel strands of polarization that are perhaps walking in Bengal. One is definitely the Hindu versus the Muslim, and the other is the non-Bengalis versus the Bengalis. It's very unfortunate that we are seeing polarization and emotive issues simultaneously, while the development issues the number crunching, the employment, the investment, that is taking a complete backseat. In fact, those would have been the issues that really concern you and me. From the city bred, urban middle class city bred to the farmers. Actually, how is our future going to be? The infrastructure, everything is taking a backseat, and polarization on the two dimensions that I said is going to rule the campaign. You watch out. That is precisely that's happening. While one camp is, emphasizing the Hindu versus Muslims, the other camp is emphasizing the non-Bengalis versus the Bengalis. In fact, in campaign after campaign, in meetings after meetings, this has been a dominant trend in the elections. You just, have your ears to the ground. You don't have to tell anybody to tell you what's happening. I mean, it's a very, very regressive thing that's happening actually.
Yes, and in that sense, Shoaib, and I'm actually being honest here, and I'm not now passing a judgment on either of the political parties, but it's happening from both ends. It's happening like, he mentioned that on two different platforms, inside and outside, and Hindu versus Muslim. But when you talk about these two planks, is Mamata Banerjee going to be able to put up a tough fight? Because a lot of this is actually comes very inherently to the BJP.
I think with respect to a tough fight, that's a given. It's going to be a very closely fought election. And, as Mr. Ghoshal said, the fact that the Trinamool itself now has suddenly discovered that it is a Bengali nationalist party.
Yes.
It's something that's very new, but it's something that has seen quite a lot of, unfortunately, seen quite a lot of traction in West Bengal. So in West Bengal, we're seeing a sort of, a battle of two identitarian ideologies, which is one is Hindu nationalism on the one side and versus Bengali nationalism on the other side. So I really think that it's going to be a very closely fought election. Unfortunately, it is not being fought by either side on economic issues or issues of public policy, and is being fought on pure identity, which I guess suits both parties. It suits the BJP because it can raise the appeasement plank, and it suits the Trinamool because, for the last while it had a fairly good development record in the first term. I think that has slipped quite a bit in the second term, which is why you see the BJP also raising issues such as central schemes, which has also pushed to some extent the Trinamool government on the back foot. For some time now, the Trinamool government is actually saying that it has sent names for PM Kisan, which is the 6,000 rupees that are given to farmers from the central government, rather than actually blocking the scheme outright.
Yeah.
In a way, the Trinamool is now saying it's sort of stuck in this red tape, but the Trinamool is saying we've sent the names, and New Delhi saying that they haven't received the names. So whatever be the truth, but it shows that this is at least having some impact on the Trinamool.
Okay. We will go to every panelist one by one. I want to start off with Priyanka Tibrewal, because Priyanka Tibrewal, as you heard, both of our journalists say, insider outsider has become a conversation point that seems to be resonating and may not bode well for your party then.
See, whether it is a point of the outsiders or whether it be the point of, appeasement politics, Hinduism versus Muslim, Islam. So whatever it was all started by Mamata Banerjee. BJP never started all this in West Bengal. Now, apart from that, when Mr. Moitra was speaking, there were certain points which I just jotted down. See, in his 4 minutes uninterrupted when he was speaking, he not for a minute did speak about West Bengal and the 10 years of work which they have done in West Bengal, what development they have done. He didn't speak about that at all because they did nothing. They have done nothing. Apart from that, he was very concerned and worried about the CAA. So let me tell him that today only Mr. Amit Shah has already announced that once the vaccine procedure is done in West Bengal, we will implement CAA and all the Matuas will get a citizenship. Now, apart from that, see, 9.5 years, Mamata Banerjee was always seen speaking about just one particular religion. And she went to the extent of saying that those belonging to to this particular religion are the cows who give them milk, and she will take on whatever they say or do because they are at least getting milk from those cows. So they are the milking cows for Trinamool. So this is about one particular religion. So who has done this appeasement? We can very well understand. See, apart from that, whatever lawlessness has happened, And that is the reason why people are against TMC. Now, out of frustration, a CM standing on a stage and saying hamba, damba, mumba, jumba, God knows what she's saying, because she says that she knows too many languages. And I think she has mixed up all the language out of her frustration, and that is what she's speaking from the stage. So people can very well understand. See, the wind of parivartan which is blowing is with BJP, and people are with BJP. That is what is actually, what is actually hounding Mamata Banerjee is that wind is hounding her.
Okay, let me get the TMC to respond to that before I go back to Mr. Ghosal.
Ma'am, let me just put a couple of official positions in front of my panelists and the viewers. Number one, the 15th Finance Commission has recently submitted its report, which was placed by the Honorable Finance Minister in the Parliament on the day of the budget. And it has clearly mentioned that West Bengal for the last 10 years have done fabulous work as far as the social indicators are concerned and the developmental expenditure are concerned. So, and as far as this year's economic growth is also concerned, because sometimes we feel development and growth are synonymous words. Unfortunately, they are not synonymous words. Development has only 5 parameters called health, education, housing, the shelter and food. And growth is a different context altogether. As far as this particular year is also concerned, Bengal has done plus 1.1% as far as concerned. So when we are saying that the social indicators and development has not happened, I think then somebody has not read the report correctly. So I think I would request them to do that. 3. Nobody needs to be told about BJP's record of being anti-democratic and authoritarian in approach. The farmers are just 19 minutes away from any place in Delhi, but people didn't have time to go and meet the farmers or talk to the farmers. But they have time to go to places and take and go to farmers' house for photo ops and other things. We have brought a divide in the country. We have decimated the economy. We have punctured the pluralistic structure. We are selling the public sector undertakings just for the sake of privatization. We are not anti-privatization, but just selling the public sector undertakings for the sake of privatization. So we have put forward the points. The country knows about BJP records. We don't need to tell them about what sort of a majoritarian sort of a concept they believe in and they are trying to advocate and practice in this country, ma'am.
Okay, 2 things that have emerged from what our political representatives have said, which I'm going to take to our experts now and ask them about it. First one is the fight which is happening between what the centre can offer, the central schemes, and what the government and what the TMC government has actually done in its own tenure. And here is Mr. Moitra claiming that Mamata's welfare schemes have actually worked very well. That's to be seen even in the Finance Commission report, and it cannot be denied. So it goes beyond development. Mr. Ghosal, is that something that's visible on ground and is resonating with the voters of Bengal?
The problem that I was precisely referring to when I was speaking first, I said that there is no reckoning of what has happened on the ground. It's only the emotive issues. Now, definitely, Mamata Banerjee has got 2 schemes which actually mirror the Ayushman Bharat and the PM Kisan Samman Yojana.
Correct.
Now, both of them are very similar. And, there are precise points on which one can really rank these parameters on which one can rank these 2 schemes. But believe me, there is no discussion on that. There has definitely been a drive from the government to distribute the Swasthya Sati cards, which is a direct competitor to the Ayushman Bharat scheme. And but the problem is there is no discussion on that. Now, if you ask Mr. Moitra, perhaps he will tell you that the Ayushman Bharat, really excludes a lot of people. If you have a bike, I mean, nobody will give you you are not entitled for that scheme. If you have a television, if you have a fridge at your home, you are not entitled to the scheme. But the Swasthya Sati card, which the Trinamool government has introduced here, actually has no such filters. But the problem is nobody is debating these points which actually reflect the development at the grassroots level. I mean, there are points on both camps. Both camps can debate these points. Actually, which is more beneficial perhaps to the public? There are thousands of things to be discussed. The investments that have come to the state or haven't come to the state, the employment that could have been generated had investments come. A lot of things could have been debated, but no, there is no debates on that front. Only emotive issues are taking center stage. That is the real pity.
Okay, let's talk about the second aspect, and Shoaib, maybe you can start off with that. Amit Shah, and not just in this visit, but even in earlier visits, has made it a point to go and spend time and meet the Matua community. They're also making huge promises to them as part of the Citizenship Amendment Act drive that will now begin after vaccination. Explain to our viewers the significance here, how this community actually is a large part of the electorate in Bengal. So far, Mamata Banerjee did enjoy their support, I understand.
Yeah, so the CA is actually a bit of a prickly point for the BJP. So just to tell our viewers, so the Motuas are a group of Dalit Hindus who have almost all come over from Bangladesh, so they're partition refugees. And they were really affected by 2003 amendment made in the Citizenship Act back in 2003 by the Vajpayee government, which basically barred them from applying for refugee status. So it basically made so everybody who was not a citizen in India became an illegal migrant. So that really affected them. So they wanted something to sort of wipe away this effect of the 2003 amendment, which the BJP promised was the CA. Now, the problem with what the CA has happened, the BJP has really promised what the Motuas wanted, but it's been 14 months now and there is no CA on the ground. So we're seeing a bit of disquiet within the local BJP. In fact, the BJP's MP from the Motua community, Mr. Shantanu Thakur, has actually publicly expressed reservations against this delay, right? And remember, the Motuas, while they were a strong Trinamool vote bank when Mamata first won in 2012 and maybe even in 2017, but due to both Mr. Modi's charisma as well as the BJP's Hindu nationalist flank, they did vote for the BJP in rather large numbers in 2019. So this is an important point for the BJP to sort of, this important base for the BJP to cover, which is why Mr. Amit Shah went there today. But now we'll have to see, because Mr. Amit Shah actually is giving a date which is actually quite far off into the future. The vaccination drive will at least get over after the election. So whether this will pacify the Motuas or not, we'll have to see the election.
Priyanka Tibrewal, promising something that only happens in the future. Will you be able to pacify them with simply having meals with them?
See, the Mathuas are already with BJP, and you can understand that because the Mathuas supported BJP in the Lok Sabha election and we won the seat from there. Now, apart from that, I think all of us do understand that what have we faced during this corona pandemic, and the entire year has passed and nothing progressive could be done in this entire year because we all had to deal with this situation and none of us were prepared for this. So apart from that, yes, we have promised this to the Mathuas and we will fulfill all our promises as we have always done so. Unlike the TMC, who has just spoken in words and have done nothing. Because when my colleague here, when he was speaking about the certain reports where they were saying that what has happened in India, no growth, nothing, no economy. So when I questioned him about what TMC has done in the past 10 years, he's talking about certain figures, but we don't get to see such employments or jobs on the ground level. Why are the teachers unhappy? Why are they on a strike? Why are they not getting proper compensation? Now, apart from that, tell me one particular industry. This is my question each and every time I sit on a channel and I ask the TMC spokesperson, tell me one industry in the 10 years which Mamata Banerjee has set up in West Bengal for employment, for development. See, every year she does a Bengal summit, the business summit, and she every time promises that this industry is going to invest in West Bengal, Jindals will come and invest in West Bengal, but it has never happened. So why do you spend crores and crores of money on that summit from which we get nothing in the name of investment? And today this yatra, which is actually a parivartan yatra, but they want to associate it with the gods and goddesses of India. So we don't mind. We respect each and every religion and we don't mind whatever you say. So they have said that this is a Rath Yatra according to them. So call it whatever you want to call it, but this is the Yatra of Parivartan, a wind of change which you are unable to stop.
Okay, quick comment then from Mr. Moitra on this. Please explain to us, when it comes to bringing in more investment and bringing it and setting up more industries and creating jobs, what is it that the Mamata Banerjee government managed to do in the last 5 years, let alone 10 years?
I will tell you. For the last 10 years, what we did, we started with a legacy issue of huge debt servicing that we inherited from the last 34 years of the left rule in Bengal. So debt servicing is a legacy issue for Bengal, one. Second, what we did, I would like to draw the attention of the viewers out here. We still understand that in India, out of 130 crore people, approximately 68%, which is 88 crores, lies below the poverty line, and Bengal being a part of India, so they are there. So the policies which were enunciated, the development policies, the welfare policies which were initiated by the Mamata Banerjee government was to bring people to the mainstream. 2, 3, we have done huge expenditure of gross capital formation in the area of infrastructure, because after the legendary Sri Bidhan Chandra Rai, who was the Chief Minister of Bengal, during the left rule, not much happened during the infrastructure, and for the last 10 years, we have spent huge amount of money, be it roads, be it rural roads, be it state highways. We have always received awards from the central government on that. So we have built that, and we have also organized a lot of interactions, interchanges with the industry and the corporates to tell us about their position, that where we stand. And I think because we believe infrastructure is a prerequisite to attracting investments. Investments have come, the figures show that, and it will improve in the future. And just by ending my point, my very dear good friend Mrs. Tibrewal, when she was talking about the summits and the numbers, let me remind you that there was one minister called Mr. Saurabh Patel of Gujarat. When he was asked that why there's so much of a difference between the MOUs and the IEMs, this thing, so he had exactly mentioned that what can we do? The industry says we will do that, but has not done it. So at all times that we are at fault, if that narrative is to be built, is not correct. And we thought that cooperative federalism is what one Prime Minister Modi believed in, but we saw that is the last thing on his mind map.
All right.
Sorry to say, but unemployed youth on the street will not understand this theory. They understand practical. They need jobs. They need employment. They need industries.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and I think that's the larger point that we've been repeatedly trying to make, that it's not just that the central government is going to struggle when you start talking about the economy, because look at the state of economy right now. Look at the kind of contraction we've seen for even before we went into the pandemic here. But neither does the TMC government have anything to say there when it comes to their own job creation in the state of West Bengal. Is that why, Mr. Ghosal, I know you say that there are a few schemes on both sides that seem to have worked, but is that why both are consciously at least staying away from job creation?
It's very difficult to say. See, a few days ago, the Chief Minister placed a full budget in the state, on the floor of the Assembly in Calcutta. Now, while she was supposed to place a vote on account, which has a very limited scope, she placed a full budget, and she claimed there that over the last 10 years, her government has created 1.125 crore jobs. And she has said that over the next 5 years, the government will create a cumulative figure of 1.5 crores jobs across the state in different sectors, both public and private. And now, if we take these figures at face value, then obviously some jobs have been created. But then there is much room for debate on whether these figures, needs to be an audit of these figures. Obviously, all government figures need to be audited. But one thing I wanted to point out, which Mr. Moitra said, that they had really inherited a lot of debt from the left government. In fact, that was not only of the left government, but since 1947, that debt of 1.93 lakh crore was there in 2011 when the left government exited. But according to the figures that Mamata Banerjee presented on the floor of the House a few days ago, the debt will balloon from 1.93 lakh crores in 2011 to 5.25 lakh crores in 2022. Now, I don't know, I mean, what explains almost a threefold rise within these 10 years. And the figures are so horrible that the loan repayment, the debt obligation of 63,000 crores, almost wipes out more than 80% of the state's revenue that is going to earn in 2021-22. So the point is, it's a huge indebtedness that we are running into. And these are precisely the figures, whether the state has the revenue base to service such a huge loan. You know, these are the figures that should have been debated. Instead, we are seeing a throwback to all the emotive issues that I don't know how much will it really affect the common man in their day-to-day lives.
Oh, I absolutely take your point. Unfortunately, what happens in elections and close elections is that we end up often talking about emotive issues and legacy wars and communal identities or regional identities than to actually talk about health and education and job creation and the overall, quality of life that a citizen may be living. Thank you so much to all of the panelists for joining us. But one thing is very clear, and I think that largely everybody agrees on, though there are topics to debate when it comes to in development. But what we are seeing in our campaign rallies, what we do see resonating in West Bengal right now is identity politics. And yes, even though Amit Shah today in his rally spoke about the Ayushman Bharat scheme, made the pitch that we are giving you Vikas, your other choice is Vinash, thereby suggesting that under the rule of Mamata Banerjee, all you're going to get is destruction. But will this Poribortan Yatra and promise of a change really help the BJP topple Mamata Banerjee? That remains to be seen. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.